Which science, by definition, allows for more than one opinion. Otherwise, you merely have the will of one man, which is the basis of cult.
If it's not in the frame, it doesn't exist.
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not gonna take this anymore!
I'm funny how? I mean funny like I'm a clown, I amuse you?
Where you been?
Drunk.
Wendy, darling, light of my life.
What's your one purpose in life?
To explode, of course.
I like death with sex. How about you, Casey? You like sex with death? Yeah, so fuck up and die.
Giuseppe Tornatoro.
That's what I was thinking.
Tornatoro. Everyone, I watched an interview, and everyone was saying, I've always wanted to work with Giuseppe. And I was like, hell yeah, Giuseppe's how I'm going to say it.
Giuseppe.
I don't know how you want to say it.
It's probably something more Italian sounding, I would imagine.
I don't know, man. Bill Nunn, Clarence Williams, they both said Giuseppe.
Well, they ought to know.
You ought to know.
So you might be thinking out there, listener, that we're speaking gibberish. Giuseppe Tortellini? What is he saying? He's saying the name of a man.
And he's not al dente, folks. He's a wet piece of pasta out there, man.
Oh, he's
on the high skis, baby.
As fuck. I'm wet as fuck. Just from living these ocean movies these last month.
Has been, dude. Yeah, man. We're gonna have life preservers on.
That's good. Right? And it's like when I saw in this movie they had the old school like 40s life preservers, and those are fun, like from Titanic. Made me think of.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
yeah, those are cute.
Get me one. Anyway, this is the Cult of Cinema Knowledge podcast, right? Soaking Wet, Jordan Howard, and Slish.
What's up,
moist.
everybody?
I'm gonna be very moist by the end of this, and it's like if you're watching the YouTube, you can probably already see the layer of glistening sweat on my forehead.
I like that.
Fucking
That's
hot
real.
here. But I turned off all my
Real
fans
man,
so that you fine folks can have the premium sound quality. But in the summer, it's not going to happen. You're going to hear fucking fans. I don't even give a shit. So what are we talking about, Jordan? Do you even know?
This is wild. This is a wild movie.
Giuseppe? I know.
Yeah,
so,
dude.
This movie, we're talking about a movie that you've probably never heard of. I mean, people have got to have, like, because I don't know, like, apparently it's pretty revered, but I've never heard of this fucking movie until, like, last week. And so, I don't know, maybe I'm just an idiot, but The Legend of 1900 is what we're watching.
Yeah, I think it's because it's so niche, but the fact that it's got Tim Roth, I'm very surprised that we haven't heard of it.
I'm kind of surprised too, and it's like it's got like an 8 on IMDb, like it's pretty
right.
Like, it's
and you
pretty
obviously
well
know
read.
it's Cinema Paradiso is like a movie that's been on our lists forever, and like for me personally, I mean you watched part of it right in school,
yeah.
Or did you?
Brandon showed it in high school, I think maybe all of it, but. I wasn't fully paying attention, and I liked it, and I just don't really remember it. So it is really, I don't even barely count that I've watched it, and I just do for a rewatch. But I knew going into Legend 1900, I was like, oh, it's that guy, the same guy who directed that. Okay, cool. So that's something. And then it's got I forgot. Oh God, I should have remembered his name, but the other main guy with 3 names.
Pruitt, yeah,
Pruitt,
yeah.
Pruitt, Vinge,
Probably
whatever.
Pruitt. Pruitt Taylor Vince.
Yeah, Pruitt Taylor Vince. He is awesome. I always think of him as the because he's the serial killer in Identity and the Devil's Candy.
Dude, I know. Identity's like the thing I remember him from. He's always the really weird, creepy dude. And so watching him in this movie where he's just a wholesome friend,
yeah,
it was so weird. I didn't know how to react.
It is weird.
Just culturally because of how he's cast.
Yeah.
It was so awkward, but I think he nailed it.
He's in Deadwood, and that's what I was most recently watched with. Obviously, if you've been listening for a while, I watched Deadwood in November finally for Western Movie Month, and he is like a main character in the last 2 seasons. Well, not a main character. He's in every episode though.
I was gonna say. Oh yeah.
He's anyway. But I like that guy. I like, even though his like weird eye stigmatism is distracting. I'm like really happy that he's got a career, because I feel like early on people would be like, no, that's too distracting. Like, you can't be in movies. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I mean, I also think it
Well,
like
that's why he gets fucking typecast as the psychopath, because he's got like the fucking epileptic eye pupils.
Well, and I think I've never noticed it because I feel like a lot of American people cut around it and they shoot like
he's always like looking
movie,
down. I think he's like self-conscious. I could see he like when he does, he's like doesn't look
right. And I think it's just not when they shoot with him, they feel like, oh, we've got to like avoid it. And in this movie, he was just like, no, we're like, I have it blocked. This is who he's gonna be. And it's just like every single close up with him that would happen. I like was kind of confused a little bit by it at first, because I was like, is that genetic, or is that like really happening to him? And so
I had to look it up. Yeah, I had to look it up because I'm like,
I didn't know if it was something with the film stock or something, or how, because this movie.
No, it's every single. I've always noticed it. I've noticed it because I find it extremely distracting. And I've also found it like also weirdly interesting and captivating. Like, it's something about it. Pulls me into his eyes in a way that makes me uncomfortable, which is, I guess, why he's the serial killer in movies. But I want to see him in more stuff anyway. That's my point, because I like him.
Well, he's like a seasoned TV.
Yeah, he's a character. I've seen him in a couple other shows as like just show up as like a guy.
Yeah.
Anyway, so what do
I
we?
really enjoyed his character in this.
Let's.
Do you want to give a little synopsis? You tell the fine folks what we're watching here.
Sure. I'll wing it. Oh, sorry. The dogs next door started howling like they're getting murdered, and they're scared. I thought it was my son. It scared me. They sound like a baby.
I don't know what haunted and torture mansion you're living in, but yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's the crack house next door. Anyway, so the Legend 1900. It starts off with this guy Max, and he's like a washed up jazz musician, trumpet player, and he goes to sell his trumpet at this like music store, and it's like I'm pretty sure it's like the 50s, post, like just after World War II, and
right, yeah.
And he goes to sell it, and he meets the old man there, and the old man has like this record that they very coincidentally ends up playing a piece of music from. It's the only piece that's ever been recorded. And he's like, I got a story for you about this record, about the Legend of 1900. And so he goes to tell like...
What's his name?
Yeah, his name is... Danny Bowman, L.D. Lemons, 1900, something like that.
Yeah, right. I think you got it. Yeah, it's like... close. I know it's Danny. Danny's the first, and then... Yeah. Anyways.
But, so...
TD, yeah.
The year 1900, New Year's Eve party. It's like he's telling the story. This is the nuts and bolts of the movie. And this dude working on the ship, on this huge liner ship, think Titanic, going back and forth between Europe, and it's like fancy parties, and then, immigrants down below, going back and forth between Europe and America. And he finds this baby on this ship and is like been abandoned, and he's like, oh shit. And so he like takes care of this baby down in the coal, the deep depths of the ship where they're fucking shoveling coal and stuff. And he names him the whole long name 1900 because he was born at the 1900 in the new year, the new century and everything.
Yeah, he was found on the first day of the first year of the first century. Yeah.
And so they name him that, and so he's this little boy, and he grows up on the ship, and this guy is like his dad kind of. And he's just like fucking him up. And he's like, don't ever leave the land. Don't ever leave the ship and everything. But he's nice about it. But he's saying all this stuff that probably ruins his life. But anyway, the guy dies, unfortunately, because in a labor accident. And so 1900.
It's Radio Raheem. He gets killed by the police.
That's right. Yeah, pretty much. That's exactly how it is.
If the police are a giant crane
hook
thing that bashes his skull.
And so 1900. Just living on the ship. He's like a part of the ship, essentially. Like all the crew know him, but he's just kind of there because he fucking lives there and was born there. And he's never left. And so, but he turns out he's like a piano prodigy, just because it's like he knows nothing else. He listens to he's obsessed with the music on the ship. And so he starts playing piano on the ship. And then eventually over time becomes like the pianist for like the on-ship band, right? And then that's where Max comes in. Young, they're supposed to be like in their mid-20s. And he shows up and he's like...
They look identical, yeah.
Yeah, he becomes a trumpet player, and so they become friends and everything. And it's just kind of like he's telling the story about 1900 and how he's just this weird guy that's like never gone to land. He's lived on this ship since he was born, and but he's like a fucking amazing piano player and musician, and he's playing for all the people below deck and on a shitty piano, and then he's playing a nice piano on the fucking ballroom and the above deck. And it's all this whole thing. Eventually, Jelly Roll, the fucking OG jazz guy from like the 20s.
Actual
real jazz musician.
Real human being. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
He challenges him to a piano duel because he heard that he's like the greatest piano player. They have a great piano tool, and he kicks his butt, and it's great by the end of it because he can just play too fast that he can light a cigarette with the piano keys. with the
right.
But, trials, tribulations, and then he sees a girl, and he kind of like falls in love, but it doesn't become like a huge plot point. But back in the present, the narrative framing device for this movie is fucking whack.
Yeah. It is, but it works. I think it's seamless, honestly.
I
but
hate
it is. Oh, really? Okay, well,
by far my least favorite part of the movie. It's like a whole star for me missing. Cause
wow. Okay. Let's get into
maybe
it.
Not that much. Maybe not. I'm a little bit exaggerating, but back in the present, fucking Max. He finds out that the Virginia, the ship, is like an old medical ship that's about to be scuttled that was used during World War II. And he goes there and he's like, wait, you can't scuttle this ship. My friend 1900 is on there. And they're like, what the fuck? This guy, no name, no country, just fucking ship. He's part of the ship. He's a ghost of a man. And he's like, but he's never left the ship. And so they go looking for him on this abandoned ship. And he's like, he's got to be here somewhere because where the fuck else would he be? And then back in the past, he decides after he meets this girl that he's like, I am going to go to land so I can hear the sound of the ocean after some inspiring talk. And then he sort of chickens out at the end because he's too overwhelmed by the city. And we'll probably get into the meaning of all that coming up. But,
yeah, sure.
So he ends up staying on the boat. And it's actually sort of tragic because Max goes on with his life and everyone kind of leaves him and he's just there. It's like he's a man that's essentially the ghost of the ship. But Max finds the old record that they recorded together. Of when he was like falling in love with this girl, and he plays it all over the rotten ship before it's about to get blown up, and he finds 1900 just like in the bows, and he's like, oh Max, I never thought you'd come back, and they have a heart to heart, and he's like, you got to get out of here, and he's like, no, this is my life. I'm gonna go out on a high note. Anyway, so he gets blown up and dies with the ship, and it's like he never existed. He's a legend that people have only told tales of, but there's no record of, right? I guess there must be photographs because there's people taking pictures of that duel anyway, but
right, there's photographs and like he got blasted all over the radios, waves and stuff, and like he does exist, but yes, it neatly fits into the fable / legend.
It's the very legend, and so and Max is like he's like sad, but he's like maybe I learned some things about my passion, and he goes back and the old man gives him his trumpet back, and he's just like, well, that's life. And then he walks away into the sunset, and it literally old school pinpricks down.
Yeah,
Iris
I know,
closing.
yeah. I love that.
I do too. But yeah, I mean, that's the gist. There's a lot of character type development moments and stuff, but that's the plot, if you will.
Yeah, there's a lot of narrative that happens in this, and it actually is kind of subtext or like it's kind of like exposition dumpy, but I didn't find it to be like it felt like a Princess Bride style or like Big Fish, or it's a narrative of somebody telling somebody in the in-world universe a story, so you kind of get away with, and that's why I personally like.
I knew you'd like it because you're so rock hard for narrations all the time.
In my stupid thing, I put like I love narration.
You do.
Like
you
I don't know why.
You should have went and wrote on the Reddit.
I know, yeah.
Anyway, so
I did go back and comment on the Reddit a little bit, but
okay.
You guys should everyone out in podcast land, go check us out on Reddit, baby,
go to Reddit.
And our YouTube.
So yeah, I guess we'll just get it out of the way. The framing structure of this movie, I could see it working really well in a book, but I wish he would have just been in one location telling a story, or like somehow the back and forth, because I just like when the voiceover would cut in, I'd be like, so is he just walking around telling this guy? Like, and then I'm like, okay, he is. And then it's like, these guys are like, boy, oh boy, you sure are a good storyteller. And I'm like, you just came in, like, I don't know. I always have a weird issue with, like, if there's a voiceover or a narrative, even a first person novel, I'm like, the narration is either omniscient, where it's like, I'm telling it to the audience, like, here's just the story, right? Or it's specifically like it's a letter, or it's like Princess Bride, like you say, like a direct story. But this is like, it's so cut in between, like, events, and also like he's telling the story to many different people.
That works though for me. Like he's telling the story to different people because this human being is such a legend, and
messy.
he is the messenger, and he's going around, and anyone he can meet, he can tell the story, and it pertains. It's like it grants him access to continue doing like his plot, you know, to be like, oh, I need to get on this ship. And then he tells a story, which we get to see as a flashback. And then in the real present time, you see like the ship captain, or the like whatever the shipyard, you know, like manager was like, oh, whoa, shit, nice, like crazy story.
Good thing you started all the way. He's like, wait, you just started in the middle of the story. It sort of works as like if it was like a series of vignettes in a way. Or if his present day story was like a little bit bigger, then it would feel like more flashbacks. But it feels small enough that it's like doesn't feel like flashbacks. It's just a narrative telling device that to me feels slapped on. And
okay, well, I think I can also
as a book, I think it works. As a book, I think it works. Right. But
well, they're apparently. The original, this is the American edited version. Have you heard? You've heard about this, right?
I knew
the original is
something
an hour longer.
Yeah, I knew something was up because I checked the runtime before I watched it on Letterboxd, and I was like, "Oh God, this thing's like 2 hours, almost 3 hours long." Yeah. But then when I started watching, I was like, "Oh, it's only like 2 hours long." So, and then obviously at the beginning, the version I watched and you watched, which is the American one or whatever, has like the restored by at the beginning, kind of like Ganja and Hess in a way, like it was restored.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, it makes me wonder about the original, like how much content was in there. Cause we always say like,
apparently
like,
the original
make it
was
longer
available.
or make it shorter, you know?
Right. And so it's like the original was the original cut. And so
I would have
like
loved
curious.
to see the original because.
Yeah. But when I like my like research, I listened to like, some people on YouTube talk about it, and like the original it's a slog to get through. It actually like doesn't really add much more to it, but it does fix some things structurally, narratively. But I do agree, the whole like it's weird how they tried to make they tried to give Max like a kind of a tragic story where like he's selling his trumpet so that, you know, because it's kind of just like he's on hard times because it's whatever post-war. And he's not able to work on that ship anymore. But you don't know any of his backstory, which it's so weird how they use Max as this like character that you're supposed to be sympathetic for.
Yeah, but there's like a huge gap between the section of story.
I agree. I think it could have just been him. I don't think it really is that distracting, but I get what you mean. It could have just been him going to the shipyard and being like, "Oh fuck, I heard that this ship, the Virginia, is going to get blown up," and then he needs to convince, and then you could just that's it. That's the exciting incident.
Bookend it. He like have a chunk at the beginning and then have it wrap up at the end, and then, you know, the hour 30 minutes or whatever in the middle is the meat and potatoes. But like, I would forget that this was going on because there would be like no voiceover or anything for like 40 minutes or something. Then it would come in with voiceover and it would cut back to the present. And he's not talking to anyone. He's just breaking into a fucking place. And then the guy's holding a shotgun in his face. And he's like, you're still in the back. He's like, wait, Pops, I have a story to continue. Let me continue telling the story that I, you know, told the dock workers, then you. So you're, you know, but let me start over. I don't know. Like, that's what gets me. It's like, I know it's just whatever. It's just movie magic. And they're just talking and it's fine. But I'm like, I just feel like none of that's really that necessary. I think, unless you're gonna flesh it out like it's two movies sandwiched together more, it felt minor, and so for me it was distracting. But I like this movie more than you, according to well.
100%.
You know what? I think we liked it the same, but your 2.5 stars is the same as my 3.5 stars, because you always are like
you 3.5 stars.
I wanted to do more. I thought this movie was really good after a certain point. Like other than these flaws, there's so many good parts of this movie.
I guess that's it. Yeah, I mean the story is fun, and I do like the fable, but I think it's like for me, I get caught up in like it's tonally it just doesn't match. It feels so weird. It really does feel like it was created originally in a different country, taken to America, and then just totally massaged and warped and like totally changed to fit like our quote unquote sensibilities.
Yeah, different.
And like, yeah, and like, because it clearly was like re-edited, and so like it just, I don't know. Yeah, it got like, it's so weird tonally for me.
It's my other problem.
And then I like there. It's like I was getting whiplash from like them being like, this baby's covered in shit. Well, fucking shit ass shit. Fuck.
Yeah, I know.
Holy fucking shitty baby, dude. But then it'd be like, and then just like the weird like punctuation of the kid being like, fuck regulations, and like that's like
why that's his thing.
He's
and he's not even like this gutter mouth little ratty kid. Like he's just a weird dude that's part of the ship that can play the piano really fucking good. That apparently just his catchphrase is "fuck that," or whatever.
His fucking like, and when he says "fuck jazz" and then like continues to play jazz, it's like really respects jazz. That actually really, it's funny. That's a small detail, like you with the narrative, like that small detail of him just being like "fuck jazz" and then continues to play jazz, like passionately. I was like, that was like the most pointless. Like the dueling scene to me is like one of my least favorite scenes. And I know that's controversial.
Yeah.
I know that's controversial because that's literally all anybody talked about. When I was looking this up online, that's it. People are just like, dueling pianos, the duel. It's perfect. It's shot so well. It's one of the greatest things that's ever existed. And I guess it's just like, for me personally, it went on way too long. I don't really give a shit about piano duels. So like I'm just like, I'm not the demographic for this. Like this is a movie where I'm like, if you liked piano, if you like playing piano, this movie is amazing. And like I actually like highly recommend it for people who are fascinated with piano. It's like it's a fine structure, and it's got a lot of great music theory behind it, and a lot of great, like I was watching a YouTube video of an actual like classical composer who was like, he's like playing the piece, and he's like, and it really, this is credit to Morricone or whatever. He like, it's credit to that motherfucker because he is so talented.
Yeah.
His music creation is amazing.
So
that piece that he plays when he finds the woman, and it's like it like is jazz and classical like mixed together. Like it's like that part, detail, that
for him,
IRL,
it's raw emotion that like he's not paying attention. It just flows out of him.
And that's beautiful. I love that.
I love the piano dueling scene because I can get into the movie. I don't have to fucking be into pianos. I'm into the stakes because it's kind of like there is no stakes, and that's what I find amusing. It's like
right. It's
for
him
1900 just basically being like, he plays the fucking Christmas Carol or whatever, and then he plays the exact same song. He's like, whatever. Until he gets fucking dissed, and then he's like, I'll show you, motherfucker. It's fun. And then like the fuck jazz, like that is just him being cheeky, I feel like. But it always feels weird because it doesn't, like, I don't think he really feels that way, and I think he really does care about regulations. Like every time he says fuck something, I feel like it doesn't mean it. He doesn't mean it. There's no heart to it, which is why that always feels weird to me, because it's like, he plays every kind of music, and so I think he's more like fuck categories. Like it flows out of you, and it's, jazz is just plain fun, I guess. But
sure. Well, apparently the original cut is a lot more racist, and so I kind of felt that a little bit. I could see as I'm watching it. I was kind of like, it's like, I just felt it like kind of clouded that, and I just think it went on too long. And I understand it's a very important scene, and it is like...
See, I was just expecting the fucking Jelly Roll to just be like, welcome to hell, motherfuckers, and a little tongue come out of his gap.
Oh my God, that would be so sick.
That's all I was thinking of.
Dude, yeah, no, that's so funny. But I think, like, the scene is fun, and I just kind of wish
fun.
it was done.
It's
I
a
wish it was
fun
done a little better.
contained thing.
Because I couldn't. I think that's what it. When I'm saying tonal shifts, I really couldn't read. Like, I don't know. I feel like the direction was weird, and it's like
the direction was real weird.
Yeah, like I just couldn't tell. Like they were doing things, and like I don't know, when people like their reaction, I'm like, is the subtext there that I'm not reading right during that scene to like kind of understand what's going on between them, and like I don't know. I just
like you said,
stronger
because like I felt that way at first. Because honestly, the first 30 minutes were the worst for that. That were like super, like they're looking in the camera, doing super exaggerated smiles.
Yes. Oh my god! Well, dude, yeah,
it was basically slapsticky. Like when Max first comes on the ship and he's drunk and he's like, "Hop on the piano, unlock the feet." It's a super dope scene,
and that's funny because that's my favorite.
That's
scene.
probably like it's
like when Max meets meets Danny or whatever.
It's up there.
Meets 1900. Like when he meets 1900, that like to me, I'm like, oh, this is fun. This is a cool scene, and I loved like the piano when he's like playing piano, and he like it's so cool because it's like, oh, he's so in tune and touch with like the ship and the piano, like the two things that like this is what we're living in. This is
that's his identity. It's his entire identity,
right?
You know?
Right, and like he basically has like superhuman powers with like controlling this, like knowing the sway and being able to play, and it like that to me is cool and indicative of like of his strengths. And so like I don't know, though the dueling part to me, I'm like, it seemed like more cocky than his character. I kind of wish that his character was more naive for never leaving the ship. And
both the characters overall, I think, were sort of flat in general. Like there were some interesting character moments, especially with like his like fear of leaving the ship, but like tonally, the first 30 minutes were really, I was like, okay, this feels like old school, like Hollywood kind of like making, like the way it's filmed and the sets and stuff. But like I feel like that slowly pattered out and it found its tone, because I didn't feel like it was that like nowhere near as wacky as the first. Like it feels like all the shit they shot with like his dad and when he was a kid, and up until that piano scene where they like go flying through the glass and everything up into that did feel like a different movie to me. Because
I agree. Like,
and then once Tim Roth
like,
came, it does feel like Tim Roth, like once he came into it more, that they filmed all the other parts in Italy or whatever, with a totally different team, and then they came to America, got a totally different vibe with like all the rest of it, because it's like then it does take on like a like more of a somber tone, but also like kind of playful here and there, because it's like this is definitely a tragedy, you know what I mean? This whole thing is definitely tragic.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. But to both characters, like 1900 is a tragic character, I think, you know. But I do wish that it was like more, because like the only time he really plays into it is like when Max first meets him and he's like, "Oh, you know your horses, huh?" and all that, and like all the stuff about him being literally only raised on his ship in the early 1900s. It's like, you know, but he's, I don't know, asks people and I guess calls people. I wish they would have had more of that, because it's like all his, when he's like, "Oh, I've talks about New Orleans, like he's been there," and then he like calls that woman from the ship. Like I wish there would have been more of that, of him like kind of yearning, because he's lonely, you know, and it's like he's such a lone character. I wanted more of that. And
I just wish he was a little more awkward. That was kind of my, like, I enjoyed like his confidence that he had, but it like turned into just like protagonist confidence, where like I was like, oh, he's not as weird as you would think. But I mean, I guess for us, the audience, he is weird, and that's what makes him the myth, is like the legend, is like everyone thinks that like they're so impressed with his, you know, quote unquote abilities, that, you know, we get, I guess we as an audience member do get to see a little more intimacy. Like when he meets the girl, like it's awkward. Like when he goes to like kiss her in her sleep,
when he like sexually assaults her in her bed.
I put in my notes, I put light SA.
Yeah.
So
I was like,
I
was like, what the fuck is like,
yeah,
just like puts his fingers in her mouth. Like, what is happening?
It was weird. I'm like, and they actually had like, they had some, some forethought not to make him just be.
Well,
like,
that's
broken.
what the other 50 minutes when he's just like fucking whacking off next to the bed.
Probably. Like he's wearing her skin now. She doesn't get off the boat. Like that's the movie I was waiting for. But this movie gave me it gave me vibes of like a Jean-Pierre Jeunet film. Like,
of course, it's got that. Well,
that's
it's got that old school Italian vibe, right?
Yeah, right. And like when I think Jean-Pierre Jeunet's French, but it's
duh. But you know,
it's a style of. But right. It's like there is this weird because Jean-Pierre Jeunet, same thing. He would make an American movie, but it has like this like foreign sensibility, and like it's just different. And I think that might be what kind of rubs me the wrong way. Like I don't know, it's weird, man. I do.
You hate movies that are. We get it. You hate foreigners.
Well, no. I mean that was one thing I kind of wish they touched on more. Like all the scenes when he's like with the immigrants and like that is a way
Those are
like he's getting
really,
culture. You know,
I like
and,
those scenes.
I loved when
he's
he
like,
he
can you
met
play
the
a
girl's
good
father.
Like a good, I don't remember what it's
Yeah,
called, but
when
like
the-
a good
when the-
shanty,
when
and he
all the
like gives
Jewish-
him a tip, and he's
yeah,
like, dun-dun-dun-dun.
all like and he can like do it,
Yep.
and like those are fun scenes to see him be a quote unquote prodigy, like to see him like be able to like get notes and then he can riff because like that's
I was
that's
expecting
fun
more of
for
that
me.
because that's when I was most into the movie.
Yeah.
Is like after it kind of found its tone, and it was kind of the juxtaposition of him playing for like these uppity crowds, and then he would always they're like, "Can we make it through the song?" And then he would always like fucking go crazy halfway through, and they're like, "Oh, we can't make it through because he can't he plays by 1900, he plays by his own rules, you know." But then he's down below decks, and he's like. He's having fun with like all the like lower class, like everyone down there just shuttling onto the ship. But he's also playing like very like somber music, like just what he's feeling. Like my honestly favorite, like the duel scene's fun, the piano scene's fun. Like those are the set pieces. But it's like, I think the best part of the movie for me is when he's explaining to Max, like when he's doing the bit, because it is playful still, but he's like showing every character and he's playing the music and is like, this is what it is. This is how I create. Right. That's the music theory you're talking about.
Right, and that's so cool is when he sees somebody and he's like, oh, and then it does the like classic.
She's on the run from her on her murder.
Well, right. And like the guy just like he's not supposed to be here and he stole somebody else's suit and it doesn't fit right and like it's like playing to him his cadence and his
great
movement.
Character moment because it's like how he observes and like also his inspirational music.
Some of the like that's what's so weird is like there'd be like these poignant, really well crafted scenes where like the dialogue slaps and I'm like, what is going on? Like these are so good.
That's right. It's so weird.
And then in between the movies,
super
the rest
weird.
of it, I'm like, this feels it feels like you wanted to make like a short film and you had like some great, really strong scenes, and then you're like, well, I'm gonna flush this out, and it just like, God, it was so I don't know, it was disjointed.
It feels disjointed. I'm telling you, the whole, not even just the voiceover, like present tense, past tense, which me, that's just a personal thing because of that. Like, I do think it's a little messy objectively, but like also I get tripped up with that sometimes, like just on my own, like reading a book, I get tripped up on that sometimes where it's like, where's this narration coming from? But like, even without that, no, I'm done talking about that.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
But I'm like, even without that, this movie is all over the place, sort of, because it's like there are so many good scenes of just like the dialogue with that we later find out is the woman's dad or whatever, when he's just like, he's like, I know how you feel, I know I got a friend that felt that way, and he's like talks about his seeing the ocean and how it made him like it was his moment where the ocean spoke to him and life is immense. And that was a really beautiful scene, and it played a huge part in his character, obviously, because when he finally decides, I'm going to leave the ship because I realize I'm lonely. Like, that's his thing. He meets this woman, and it's not even like he's so in love with her. He's just like enchanted by her beauty, and is like, I have nothing, right? But he has the opposite feeling when he sees he goes to walk off the ship. Instead of like, that was probably that was a great moment in the movie, because
that was a really good moment in the movie, and like
just
I'm
sees
sad
the city and turns around,
Yeah, and no, it's weird. I actually like other people were saying that like the CG took him out of it, and I kind of agree that the CG was rough, but it's weird. It really kind of strangely worked for that scene.
That
I kind of
scene
liked.
only.
I kind of liked the. No, really though. Yeah,
I
all
agree.
the other CG.
I agree
all
with
the other
you, but
CG scenes.
the
I was
rest
like,
of the
I was like,
CG and composite,
this-
the
well,
compositing
and I was
was
so-
whack.
I was so confused. Like when they shot like the the fucking Statue of Liberty and the ship. I'm like, they had a real ship. They were shooting on a real ship. They could have just shot the ship and then composited it onto ocean. Like they didn't need to create an entire CG ocean. It was really weird. But anyways,
Weird.
that
So
scene, that scene it's weird. It kind of looked like a matte painting almost with like animation done.
Yeah.
Which like it kind of worked. I don't know. I liked the CG. It kind of looked like Sky Captain: The World of Tomorrow.
Yeah, I kind of like that too.
I kind of I liked it, and I thought it worked really well with like the fantasy of it. But like him, that was great cinema because him taking his hat off and just throwing it, and like I don't quite know exactly what that meant. Like I don't really exactly like him like maybe just like taking his hat off to the immense power of the city and like how just like he said, it goes on forever and he doesn't understand it. And so like him just kind of taking his hat off to it and like throwing his hat, in the ring or something and being like, I can't do this. I have to stay on the ship forever. And like that's like the symbolism there is beautiful. And I like that. I don't really know exactly what it is. It's up for interpretation.
Yeah.
Like that's a good bit of film. And then it's just like weird how they don't know what to do. It's like they set up this like great structure and then the like punchline doesn't really land.
Like I think it's like him because you didn't really realize the full impact of it until like kind of later when he's talking to Max at the end before the ship gets scuttled. But like I think he like throws the hat and it's supposed to be like, oh, like I've resigned, but it's just like that's like he's broken. The man that told him that like he saw the ocean for the first time and it changed him. Yeah. He had the exact same feeling, but opposite. Where it's like where he sees the ocean, like all he knows is the ocean. He sees the land and the immense city, and he has the exact same feeling, but it's an extremely negative reaction where it's just like the life is immense. The other guy's like, life's immense. That's positive. He's like, life is immense. That's too much as a negative, And so it's just like I don't know, like he's so broken and sad. Like it's so sad that he's just like, no. And then Max can't even convince him. He's just like, no, I'm small. I know nothing. Like I wouldn't be able to handle it out there, which is like logistically true. And it leans into the legend.
Sure.
But it's like, the better legend is that like, maybe he's still out there to this day. You know what I mean? Like he finally did leave the ship. Like I was rooting for it, but, I thought
they'd do a wink and a nod to that. Like I get why they would like, quote unquote, just kill him. Like he is like I think he's definitively dead. Like that's the whole point, obviously, with the end, and him leaving and stuff. But like,
yeah,
I don't know, yeah, and that climax is great. I love a climax that's just kind of like just a good conversation. It's just nice little conversation, and then kind of they ruined it with the joke. I feel like I don't know why.
This movie kept doing that too, where it's like ruin it with jokes, serious moments with jokes, but like every time somebody would go to leave, somebody would be like, hey, wait. And then like they do that like 3 times and like, I'm trying to leave here. I don't know. I hate it when movies do that. It happens all the time.
Right.
But it's like a trope. But I don't know. The joke, I was trying to figure out the meaning of the joke because I'm like, I feel like there's more to it with his 2 right arms, and it's like better than nothing. It's like, that's how he's just learned to have a positive outlook or something. Despite his circumstances and despite the fact that even though he's kind of given up and he's just living on this fucking abandoned ship just eating rats or something, like I don't even know, he's just chasing rats around. And
no, that I know. I mean, that's where I'm kind of like I totally live in the realm of suspension of disbelief.
Oh yeah,
on the fact that he's been living on this ship forever. Like I actually I love that. I think that's like amazing, and I wish they would focus on it a little bit more. But or like I guess you don't really need to answer it.
Well, you're right though. They set the nugget of the man is so interesting but it feels like it never really fully blossoms. Like the best moment is that he has that moment where he's like, I'm gonna go to land finally, but then he's like, I can't. Never mind, I can't do it. I'm too overwhelmed by it. And like
and
that,
I think
that's
what's
good.
Tragic
but I'm like,
for you too. It's like
it is.
It's tragic for you because he does. My hopes got up when he was like, I'm gonna go to land. And I was like, oh shit, is this movie gonna like get off the boat? Like because it's like I figured like
I know he doesn't.
And I was assuming it wouldn't.
Yeah, because it's like
right.
He's
but
living
like
in the present, but
yeah, I know exactly. But then then also you get double hope at the end when he's like he can't find him on the ship, and you're almost kind of like, oh, maybe he did get off, like, you know. But I mean, I think it's like, you know, inevitably you know that he's not. He's, you know, can't get off the ship.
it's like
Yeah.
I wish there
I don't
was like so many movies. It's like I'm mostly disappointed by like the potential because it's like there's so much good in this movie, and I feel like it's so weird that. And I guess because it's like we watched a version too that has like been edited,
And that I know, and that always like that
I
makes
feel
me
like the book
wonder.
is probably very interesting, like, but because it's like I want to know more about, like, I want to see his naivety. I want to see what this man who has never lived outside of a ship, like more of his psyche, because you don't see that much of that. You see mostly he's just a fucking piano prodigy. You know what I mean? Which
Right.
I've seen that before, and it's like that's not as interesting, and so it's like they chose to focus on that so much, which is like it's a huge part of his character, and like the way he emotionally expresses himself to the outside world and everything. But like I just wish there was, like, the piano stuff was dope, but I just wish there was more, and it was more consistent. Those are my things, you know what I mean? But there's just too many good scenes, too many good dialogue moments and good set pieces that I think overall the positives outweigh the negatives for me. But it's deeply flawed. It's a deeply flawed movie. But I'm like,
that's where my rating comes in. That's usually how I rate. Like when I say 2.5, that's because it's like it's a movie I would suggest, but it just like it's too flawed to be like, you know.
Well, that's what the rating is hard, because I mean we talked about it last week where it's like Leviathan is a 1.5 star movie. It is not a good movie.
No, right, but
I got a 4-star level of enjoyment
4
out of that. So how do I rate that? Because it's like this movie is a 2.5 star movie, but I enjoyed it because the parts that were good were really good for me, and they did really click for me. But the complete package was sort of a mess and left me wanting, you know. But overall, it's like Tim Roth is the dude, man. What? Like I miss him. Like I feel like I haven't seen him in anything since like Hateful Eight, and even then he's like a side character. But
yeah, he hasn't been a leading man in a movie for a while. And apparently in the first edit, he doesn't come in until the first like hour and 10 minutes or something. Like he really like he's not. I mean, in this one too, he doesn't come in
quite a while,
first, like 40, maybe 30, 40. So it's like. Yeah, I kind of like the whole time I was like, well, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. There's just so much potential to this where like it's funny. It does feel rushed, but like I also heard that the longer version feels too long.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like it feels rushed, but I also don't necessarily like. I wish there was more, but I don't wish it was longer because like it did feel pretty long. And I don't know. I guess that's the thing. It's like it's got weird pacing because it's like. I wish they cut out more of the unnecessary shit and give us more of like the good character, good. Just tightened up the framing shit for me. I don't know. And it's like if you're going to lean so far into Max as a character, which he essentially is the protagonist, telling the story of 1900, it's like, give me more of him. Like, why? I thought it was going to I thought the timelines were going to meet up. I was going to be like, sure. This is why he's at his lowest point. He's given because it opens with him on the steps, and he's like, "My life is in shambles," and then he goes and sells his. And let's just talk about for a moment and this is what put me on the wrong foot. Is when he goes into that music shop, and he goes to sell his trumpet. And he's like, "Let me just play one last song," and he plays it, and the other guy's like, "Whoa, that's this song," and then he puts on this record, and he's like. By God, what are the chances that I played the exact song that you have a record to that was only ever recorded one time and I broke it and I hit it in this piano. So let me tell you this story. And I'm like I wish it was just him, Princess Briding. Like I wish he was just being like, listen here, son, I have my own son now and I'm going to tell you the story of a man, you know, like somehow frame it not that I don't think it's interesting. I don't know, I was already like, okay, the legend of 1900. Okay, calm down. The shitty baby and everything. Like,
But yeah, no, right.
He's got the
And
rig,
that's
like
what I
the
mean.
oil can
I-
full of milk and everything.
I
I'm like,
know.
what is
Right.
this movie?
The weird contraptions and stuff,
what
and like
is this?
him just. I mean, but I liked how absurd it was, but it was so like it was weird. It was like absurd and crass at the same time. Like I just
it
was
off.
It
was off. Yeah, it was like jarring, but like not in a way that's like, oh, it's a shocking curse word, but it's just like, just definitely felt like it didn't belong here. It definitely felt like when like a TV show that's on like network TV and then they suddenly get a chance to cuss and then it's like they're cussing too much and it just like feels weird because suddenly you're hearing characters you never heard cuss all of a sudden. Like,
right.
It just is like a 13-year-old boy just being like, well, that fucking shitty baby. And you're just like, huh? It's just coming out of your mouth. Like, why? Because they're dock workers, but it just feels so artificial. But I don't know. I think artificial, I think, is the way to
And there's like, do they sing in this movie? The dock workers? No, they don't. They're not singing down there, are they?
I'm not surprised.
I think in the original cut there is a musical. There is a musical number.
Not
where
in the slightest surprised. Not even
they
slightly
sing to the
surprised.
kid. I'm pretty sure that was because I was like trying to remember. I'm like, God, this movie is one of those that I will remember it and someone will mention it and I'll be like, oh my God, I've seen this movie.
Nobody will ever mention this movie to you.
I don't know, man. But I do, and God, I do love the idea of like coming into Ellis Island and like everyone's like, and like that build up at the beginning. Like these are the things I loved. Where it's like the huge build up where he's telling the narration and he's like when somebody sees it the first time they see her, they in the crowd. There has to be one person on the ship. There's one person that says it, and then it's like America.
I know he's like that's the guy that's got
cool.
the America in his eyes. You know what I mean? I can practically see it, and it's
right.
It's great. Like but then it never went anywhere.
It just doesn't go anywhere. It just sucks. It's like that's what I'm saying. Like I feel like this movie was several scenes of like you said, kind of vignettes almost, where they wanted to bridge the gap, and so they brought in the narrator, and that was like I feel like that's where it started, but
yeah. Anyway.
It is cool for like film history. I do want to like look into it more and figure out like this, because this movie is weird. It got like re-edited and then like re-released because like didn't this come out? I felt like it came out in America like 2 years later or something.
Yeah, I read something because I was trying to read about the restoration because the only other recent movie that I remember like that was like Ganja and Hess. And that was very interesting that I was like, oh, this was almost lost to time. And this movie feels like a mess that was kind of almost lost and then someone else put it together. And I think like that's why I'm like, I can't discern if it's the movie's fault or if it's just been in too many people's hands that it doesn't have a singular vision. And that's why the tone is so weird. Because it's just like, is the director just off his meds and the tone's just everywhere? Or is it that they filmed for a year in Italy and then they came over here to shoot all fucking Tim Roth shit and they had like a totally different crew and it's a totally different vibe. And then it like they lost 2 reels on a fucking sunken ship and then they had to like restore it years later for a re-release. And it's like, so by the time we watched it in the year 2024, I'm like, this movie's a fucking mess. And I'm like, I wonder why. Is it the movie or is it the fucking process that it took to get here over time? And I don't know, like, we may never know. But
and that's the thing.
I would love to someone out there that's seen the original Legend of 1900. Come tell us. I know you haven't, but that'd be great.
Well, we'd love to hear it. You can email us at, coldestcinemaknowledge@gmail.com and let us know if you've ever seen this. Did you see this in theaters in Italy when it released in '98 or whatever? Like, is that?
I hope that there's one guy listening to this podcast right now and it's just like, that's me. I'm the guy that saw The Legend of 1900. That's my favorite movie. I have The Legend of 1900 fucking tattoo and Tim Roth. I saw it on the day. Anyway, what's the fucking money minute? You got one? Or is that a mess?
Yeah, I do. That's also no. It's funny because it's a lot more documented. Surprisingly enough, like where like Leviathan had like less documentation, but this had a budget of $9 million, which is totally exactly what I expected. and it grossed 21. So I think they did fine. I mean, this is kind of like it's kind of weird when it comes from like a foreign director who's already well established in, you know, his hometown. Like it's like, you know, their country where they're from. They've already made 12 movies or something, if not more. I can't even remember. He's
yeah. There's
made quite a few films before this.
That is always a weird thing, and I'm like, what is that? That is a weird cultural thing because you got me thinking of Park Chan-wook when his one when he came over and did Stoker, right? You remember that? Do you remember Stoker?
Right. Yeah, I didn't see it, but
weird, man. Like it was just felt so to me so off. And I'm like, that is a weird phenomenon of like a foreign director coming and doing like an English language movie and like culturally how that does or doesn't transfer over. That's a subject of like I'd like to get into more one day because I'm like that does fascinate me a little bit. Of like, what? Obviously, it's a weird cultural thing, but it's like even if that I don't know, Stoker.
Well, dude,
not Stalker,
we've got a
Stoker.
That yeah, Giuseppe, dude, he directed Enino. How do you say Enino? And how do you say his name? Ennio. Oh my God, the composer. Why do I always trip up on his name so hard?
I always because it's like I always just say Morricone. You know,
Morricone.
It's
yeah,
Ennio Morricone.
Ennio. Is it Ennio?
That's how I say it. I don't know.
That is Giuseppe has directed a movie in 2021 called Ennio.
Because he died like a couple years ago, so it makes sense.
He did, yeah. And I'm like, it looks beautiful. And I'm like, so that's
he's one of my favorite composers, man. So I would love this. The music, we kind of skimmed over it because this movie's about music, but the score was by far the best part about this movie. Like it was so good.
Right. Yeah.
I gave it a 10 on the survey. Did you do the survey? Were you the only one other guy?
I didn't see the survey.
You piece of shit.
On the Reddit, dude. No, is it hidden?
No, it's in the discussion post. Go check it. Fill it out before I post it.
Oh, it's in the discussion post.
Correct.
Oh, the survey. Oh, I see. I keep thinking it's gonna be a post, but it's just it's a hyperlink.
It's about the movie. Yeah, it's a hyperlink to the survey, and then I'll do the results I'll do that as a separate post.
As a post, I get you. Cool. Well, awesome. Hey, everybody, go on the Reddit and do the survey.
Yeah, check it out. I only have one Reddit though, because this is one of those movies that like I do feel like I'm gonna post it on Facebook or something and be like, "The Legend of 1900." Anyone heard of that shit? Like,
yeah.
It's like
no.
So the one person other than us that I closed it out for some reason because I'm a fool. So Clones of People 2 says, first watch. My wife suggested this to me while I was watching Leviathan last week. I knew the title but knew nothing of the film. I feel a bit torn on this. On one hand, it's really well made, and the look reminds me of some period gangster films, Once Upon a Time in America or Godfather 2. There was a real poetry to it at times, and I liked the score. On the other hand, it sometimes felt overly drawn out. There was a lack of depth to the characters and to the plot. I feel like in the runtime it could have been tighter and with more pulpy story. Agreed. Or longer, drawn out of either way. There was a cartoonish whimsy about this that I sometimes see in Italian film, and it seemed out of place at times, like the cuts to characters in the piano duel. Overall, it's commendable, but I'm a little disappointed. It was nowhere near as good as Cinema Paradiso, 7 out of 10. Thank you for commenting. Okay. I'm curious, Clones of People 2, go let me know on, I guess, the post for the podcast. I want to hear, how did your wife hear about this movie? Like, I'm just curious, like, this movie feels like a legend of a movie almost, because it's like,
yeah,
I didn't hear about it till you mentioned it on the Reddit, so thanks for the suggestion, because I'm glad I watched it, you know what I mean? It's like, I'm glad I watched every movie. And Tim Roth is just, Tim Roth and fucking, what's his other fucking face, with the shaky eyes? I like that guy, so...
I know he'll forever be a character actor. I don't remember his name either.
I know. Well, he's got 3 names too, and that's why he always plays the serial killer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I don't know. I thought it was pretty fun, and but yeah, that's what it is. Good. Made me want to watch. I don't know what we're gonna do for next month, but it made me want to watch more like not musicals, but movies about music and about
that would be a fun genre.
because I like those are always kind of interesting to see in film. It's like, as someone who likes film and music, so
Yeah.
I ain't got anything else to fucking say about this movie. You got anything? I'm done. I'm over it.
No, yeah.
I'm done. Legend of 1900.
If you like this,
There it is.
I recommend watching City of Lost Children. That's kind of the
Honestly, yeah.
vibe I
And
got.
you know what? Clones of People 2's comment mentioned Once Upon a Time in America, and that makes sense because that's a fucking Italian director, Sergio Leone,
Yeah, that's right.
directing like an American gangster movie. And so that kind of makes sense. That will be in our fucking podcast about foreign directors making American films too. But because that one's got a vibe, but it pulls it off really well. But I think it's because it's
I bet
there when it was being established as the genre.
And I also assume from looking at the Money Minute, I'm assuming that distribution came from Medusa. Like it was not a wide. It's like typically like a Miramax or like Paramount or something will take it as well. And so I don't know. Yeah, I wonder if that had something to do with why this movie didn't kind of like get its like meaty claws into the
yeah, it's sort of
here, but
it's sort of a it's an intriguing title, but also a terrible title. Like,
Bad.
If I like it, I'm intrigued by it. If somebody's like, "Oh yeah, you ever seen The Legend of 1900?" I'd be like, because I was like, "What? Never even fucking heard of that."
That actually is like a cute self-aware scene when they're like, you can't name a kid 1900.
Yeah.
Like
he's like, now it's a name. Well, and the lady is like, what's his name? Yeah. And he's like 1900, and she's like, no, not the piece, the boy. And he's like 1900, and she's like, oh, like the song.
Like the
song. Because he just said, I'm like,
yeah. No, that's funny. That's like that's a self-aware joke. That's a good joke.
That's a good one that doesn't like, it's like, boing, like look at the camera.
Like I was waiting for like the ship captain to have his pants get like ripped off in like a jet propeller or something. I don't know. But
anyway, hopefully right now, let's all go to the lobbies playing because that means the episode is ending.
Oh, I don't have them with me. I got the stickers. They're in the mail. Everyone.
Oh, there you go.
Patreon. If you want to have cute little stickers, come to our Patreon and support us, please.
Check the Reddit. I don't know what movie we're watching next week because so far it's a tie. So it's either going to be Atlantis, the 2000 or 99 cartoon, whatever year it came out, or the Red Turtle. So we'll see. Go to the Reddit to check that out. You'll find it there. So long. Thanks for listening and checking everything out.
Goodbye.
Bye.